Sigh, sigh. This is a sad thing that I'm going to cover today. And some people may think, oh, big deal. Who cares? What does it matter if Wonder Woman's a UN equality champion or whatever? It is sad just because of the reasons that the whole thing became a brouhaha. Now, we don't know for certain that this ending of a campaign had anything to do with the petition, and I'll get to the petition in a minute, but this is just background on this issue. The UN also used Angry Birds in a campaign, and that lasted precisely one day. So we really don't know why it was stopped, but that doesn't change the fact that there was this brouhaha and there's all these headlines, and I want to talk about the message that this is actually sending to women and girls around the world with this, that Wonder Woman, who less than 2 months after outrage by her appointment, she's been dropped. She's a fictional character, so let's keep this in perspective, okay? But dropped as a honorary ambassador to promote messages about women's empowerment and gender-based violence. And I love the image the BBC, this is the BBC, used for this, because it shows the evolution of the character through the years. And one thing that's very important to keep in mind about Wonder Woman's costume is she was created in the days before spandex, and she was created at a time where we had very different opinions of what a woman in essentially a quasi-metallic bathing suit meant. So, I think that it's very sad that the UN, that, includes members that don't actually recognize women's rights at home, went through this entire process and didn't take this opportunity to make a statement about what this whole thing means. I mean, in these images, some of these hip lines, some of the cuts of these things are pretty ridiculous by modern standards, but it was trendy at the time. Also, Wonder Woman's costume, you have to keep in mind, is literally held up by magic. It's called the Girdle of Gaia for a reason. But let's get to the petition itself, because the story itself is somewhat sketchy. The other thing I want to point out about this is that this whole Wonder Woman thing happened while the UN itself was under criticism for having a lack of gender parity in senior roles. So perhaps this explains some of the sensitivity. However, I still think there's a logical flaw, multiple logical flaws in the original petition. So let's jump to that. First of all, I want to point out the petition did not make its goal. That's telling, because as a global entity, with the amount of press this outrage campaign got, I would have expected them to hit 45,000 people signing this petition in their sleep. If this was really something that people are concerned about. I mean, other petitions, a petition to do something about a driving law for teenagers in rural Ontario got more excitement per capita than this petition did. Just to keep that in perspective, that 45,000 people, when you're talking about a United Nations initiative, is not very much. That's automatic recount territory in some U.S. jurisdictions, okay? But let's read this. They call out the fact that she's a fictional character and that DC Comics is a for-profit entertainment corporation, as if that's inherently a bad thing. It shouldn't matter if something is for profit. We should encourage women to get involved in business and make business more relatable and I don't want to say female friendly because that's kind of the wrong word, but more and more we're finding that women lack the networking opportunities that some men do in business, and this can explain some of the discrepancies in the business world, which is a completely practical, rational thing that we can address that has nothing to do with inherent ability or interest. Wonder Woman was created 75 years ago, and that's relevant. Although the original creators may have intended Wonder Woman to represent a strong and independent warrior woman with a feminist message, the reality is, aren't we dealing with a fictional character? That the character's current iteration is that of a large-breasted white woman of impossible proportions, scantily clad in a shimmery thigh-bearing bodysuit with an American flag motif and knee-high boots, the epitome of a pin-up girl. And let's break that down. Although the original creators may have intended Wonder Woman to represent a strong and independent warrior woman of the feminist message, not may, they did. They did. That is documented. Wonder Woman's people are called the Amazons because that's what Emmeline Pankhurst's bodyguards were nicknamed by the British press. It is a direct connection. So honoring Wonder Woman is a direct connection to men and women alike supporting women's equality. It's hardwired into the character. The reality is that the character's current iteration is that of a large-breasted white woman of impossible proportions. Okay, let's go back to that picture again. Let's go back to that picture. Let's go back. Okay, there she is. I'd say she's a C cup at best, which is not large. That's actually average. And impossible proportions, improbable perhaps, but impossible, I'm just not seeing it. Part of the reason I cosplay the characters I do is to remind people that these impossible proportions is not necessarily all that impossible. It is possible. Yes, it is improbable. I understand that my body type is improbable, but it's a real body. I don't have surgery, you know. I have bloated days like everybody else, so let's not go there, please. Let's stop body shaming. Scantily clad in a shimmery thigh-bearing bodysuit with an American flag motif and knee-high boots. Okay, thigh-bearing bodysuit, perhaps there's a point, but the actual current incarnation of Wonder Woman is wearing pants. And I personally have issues with that. But this is just inaccurate. They actually put pants on Wonder Woman for the show about teenagers aimed at children that they use some of the DC comic online stuff for. But that's just factually inaccurate. American flag motif, so what? So what? The depending on which origin of the character, the reason she dresses that way is because Steve Trevor crash landed. They saw the flag and thought, we're going into man's world, so we're going to be, you know, as a symbol of peace, we're going to adopt their symbol. So, you know, that's one of the reasons they explain why Wonder Woman, who is not American, is wearing the American flag. And knee-high boots. So what? First of all, pin-up girls don't wear knee-high boots. It's more than often in good girl pin-up art, it's more than often bare feet because you're putting on a stocking or something like that, or you got one shoe off. Boots are modern pin-up. It is not classic pin-up. Bad girl pin-up art, yes, has kitten heels, but knee-high boots are not part of the pin-up aesthetic classically. So already this petition doesn't know what it's talking about. This is the character that the United Nations has decided to represent a globally important issue, that of gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. And like it or not, world, America has been one of the countries, while not having a perfect record, has at least attempted to address the issue of gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. There are still places in the world where women are not allowed to vote. Now, granted, there are still places in the world where men and women alike can't vote because they live under fascism or they live under theocracies, but that's not the point here. The point is that like it or not, America, the brand of America, is a symbol for freedom and progressive thought. Now, whether or not America has lived up to that symbol as of late is a fair matter for debate, but that doesn't change the fact that, it was France followed by America that went, we're going to have representative government by the people and for the people. So I don't understand this argument. And it appears that this character will be promoted as the face of Sustainable Development Goal 5 for the United Nations at large. That's something I covered in a past video. And I think it was actually a good idea to use this character simply because it's actually very hard to find symbols or characters, I'll say, that are globally recognizable, that especially when it comes to women, there just aren't that many relevant female characters for that have global recognition, because movies like, the episodes 4 and 5 of Star Wars were banned in the Soviet Union. Things like that. It is hard to find a character that is recognized around the world. At a time when issues such as gender parity and senior roles and the prevention of sexual exploitation and abuse of women and girls at the top of the United Nations agenda, including the He for She campaign, this appointment is more than surprising. It is alarming that United Nations would consider using a character with an overtly sexualized image at a time when the headline news in the United States and around the world is the objectification of women and girls. Okay, little test here. The He for She campaign has Emma Watson as a spokesperson. So let's Google Emma Watson and see what kind of sexualized imagery we come up with. Here we go. Images. Here we go. Okay. Tattoo. Okay. Oh, look at that. Look at this. Now, this may be a photo manip. I don't know. But she's got tousled hair here. Oh, windblown. That's a photo manip. Oh, look at this plunging neckline. Oh, look at that's a photo manip. Wow, there's a lot of photo manips of Emma Watson. But I mean, oh, look at that come hither stare right there. Look at these sexualized poses. Oh, no. Oh, dear. I think Emma Watson has been a subject of the dreaded male gaze. Let's see here. Let's try this. Emma Watson modeling. Oh, look. Oh, look. Oh, look. She's biting her lip. Oh, look at this. Oh, look, her thigh-bearing image. Look. Oh, look, thigh-bearing. Oh, God. Someone tell the UN. Emma Watson bared her thighs in photographs. Someone put her in a burqa before this gets completely out of hand. Look at legs. What? Oh, no. Terrifying. What? Have I made my point? Okay. Have I made my point? There is nothing wrong with overtly sexualized images. Women need the right to be sexual when they feel it is appropriate. When you demonize female sexuality, as this petition does, you eliminate a woman's ability to find the level of sexuality that feels right for her, because it's all evil. And this is actually patriarchal suppression of female sexuality that various very patriarchal systems back in the day. I mean, I'm talking like, back in the day, England, before women had the right to vote. Women were not allowed to be part of the public sphere. Women were not supposed to be seen in public because, oh God, they may flash an ankle. It was distracting to men. All these things we know now are not right. The association with women having to cover up is an association with women not being seen. And that is an intensely patriarchal concept that has crept into feminism just because people don't stop and think before they react. This programming runs so deep that people don't think before they speak and go, wait a minute, what's actually wrong with this? But to invoke the he for she campaign using a major celebrity who's got endorsements with Burberry as a, and then complain that DC Comics is a for-profit entertainment corporation. I hate to break it to you folks, but so's Warner Brothers, and most people know Emma Watson as Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. And what's the difference between somebody who's famous for playing a wizard, and someone who's an Amazon? Oh, because Wonder Woman shows thigh? So what? Deal. So the message the United Nations is sending to the world with this appointment is extremely disappointing. The bottom line appears to be that the United Nations was unable to find a real-life woman that would be able to champion the rights of all women on the issue of gender equality and fight for their empowerment. Well, if you're going to call someone out for their race and manner of dress, there is going to be no woman, living, dead, or fictional, who can represent all women. And that's a huge problem with this argument, that either someone is too conservatively dressed or too provocatively dressed. You will never appease everyone if you're going to take that approach. And everybody has a race, whether it's white, black, brown, or somewhere in between, and all the other races out there. There should not be this association with a race and evil. That's just racism. There is no colonial implication in Wonder Woman. So if it was one of these characters, like Tarzan or something like that has that, heavy element of African colonization in their backstory, I would really understand. But Wonder Woman doesn't have that. She comes from a fictional place. She comes from Theramuscria. So I really don't see the problem with her race or body type, especially when you look at, some of the issues facing African women and some Asian and South Asian women about, the surgical alteration of bodies to make them more marriageable. All bodies should be considered legitimate bodies, no matter what they look like. Having strong, living, breathing female role models is a critical aspect of the goal of empowerment of women and girls. Yes, and if you keep behaving this way, we're not going to get them. I should say, I didn't say before, that this wasn't an issue of not being able to find a real-life woman. This was a program that coincides with real-life goodwill ambassadors. It's not taking a job away from somebody. It was just something that was supposed to be an interesting symbol, the same way people put Superman on postage stamps, and nobody complains about that. Since 2007, the Secretary General has launched a campaign after the banner of empowerment of women and girls. However, the United Nations cannot on one hand claim that providing women and girls with equal access to education, healthcare, decent work, and representation in political and economic decision-making, blah, 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 blah. It's the same argument to the previous appointment of fictional characters with ambassadorial positions such as Tinkerbell and Winnie the Pooh. So what? Okay, Winnie the Pooh's a bear and Tinkerbell's a fairy. What's your point? So what? Their argument is this role is too important to be championed by a mascot. She's not a mascot. I almost swore there. She's a symbol. And that's not the same thing. She is an icon. And she means a lot of different things to a lot of different women. And the idea that, they don't need a fictitious character to empower them or tell them about women's empowerment. And, you are not the audience. We are not going to preach to the converted. This is all, here's the thing. Read Orwell and understand that people need the idea before they can become embodiments of the idea. Wonder Woman represents something that is not even possible for a lot of women in a lot of countries around the world right now. And exposure to those concepts is integrally important for women around the world to recognize that these things are possible. And do we need more diverse female role models, fictional and non-fictional alike? Absolutely we do. We need more diverse real women doing things. We need more diversity in fictional characters in all ways, and that includes mindset. And that doesn't change the fact that Wonder Woman is a uniquely feminine symbol of strength and autonomy and action. And her costume being very free and open is representative of that. You're talking about a character that was designed at a time where, women weren't supposed to show their collarbones or ankles. And so, yeah, the fact that she has exposed clavicle and, aggressive kneecaps was a revelation. And I think that's super important. Women's bodies are not evil. Women's bodies are not dirty. And different cultures around the world have different standards of what is considered appropriate dress. If you live in a place that it's hot, you should not be forced to cover up for modesty. If you want to wear less clothing because you find that more comfortable, you should be allowed to do that. And the association with nudity and savagery is actually quite racist because of the various cultures in sub-equatorial or equatorial countries that actually have a lot of nudity just because it's freaking hot. And people go, what about sunburn? Fine, fair. But if you're indoors and it's still hot, you don't want to be wearing a lot of clothes that, don't let the breeze touch your skin. And let me tell you, I've, traveled to places that are quite hot. I mean, the entire way of life is very different. And even bathing suits in different part of the world. You go down to Miami, the bathing suits are designed completely differently than the way they are up here, because you get more wear out of a bathing suit in Miami than, the 2 months of outdoor weather you can go to the beach up here and not pretend you're not cold. So I think there's a lot of really misguided thinking behind this petition, and I think if the UN really wanted to do some good here, they wouldn't have just dropped the campaign, or they wouldn't have done nothing. They would have organized a debate on this topic, including women like Emma Watson, who do good work, and they do modeling, and they do acting, and show that women should not be forced into being a single dimension. And that yes, Wonder Woman is a fit, beautiful, tall, white woman. You can say she's large busted, but not by my standards. But what else is she? What is her character? We don't see a single thing in that petition about what's in her heart or what's in her character. And that's when people go, she's not real. Suspend your disbelief for a few minutes and talk about what the character represents. If we want to say, it's not real, then we have to toss out pretty much every religious symbol under the sun as well, because there's somebody out there who will go, that's not real. And that's just, it violates cultural relativism. It violates the idea that you should take symbols on their own terms. It violates the fact that you should hear all sides, and there is an intersectional approach to this whole thing. And the reality is more and more they've been drawing Wonder Woman more as Greek as opposed to a, straight up kind of Anglo-Saxon woman. You sort of see the evolution in her facial design. And I think that's super important. The fact that Wonder Woman in the movies is played by an Israeli actress gets some people's knickers in a twist. And, there are other people who say she's too skinny. And I am one of those people who agree with that, but I'm willing to overlook that if she's really good in the part, right? Her body should not be the most important thing, because if that's the most important thing in Wonder Woman, then you have the people, and this happened in the entertainment press, you have people saying Jennifer Lawrence was too fat to star in a movie called The Hunger Games. There's trade-offs when you start judging people on these paradigms. And this needs discussion. We need to stop just having these knee-jerk responses to bare thighs, bare legs, objectified. There's nothing objectified about Wonder Woman. She is not, her boundaries are not violable. She is not something that can be substituted with an object. She is not lacking in recognition as a person, meaning she has a face. None of the objectification checklists apply here, unless you want to claim that, the secondary ones of, you can't even say reduction to appearance or reduction to body. There's so much more there that I don't see her being reduced to her body, because if you look at her body, you're seeing the symbol, which is, like it or not, yes, it's an American flag, but that's a symbol of freedom in this context. So iconic status does not mean you're objectified. And having bare thighs does not mean you are a poor example for women, because here's the thing. You have to go into the doctor, and doctors have to examine you, and that should not be a shameful thing. If you fall down and your skirt goes up around your shoulders, which has happened to me when I was younger, that should not be a horribly embarrassing thing. It should be something you should laugh at and move on. Where women are still in prisons of self-made shame in this day and age, in 2016. And it's holding us back. It's holding us back from workplace success. It's holding us back from equality of even remote equality of outcomes, because we may have the opportunities on paper, but we're so afraid of making a mistake, we're so afraid of being judged, that we don't take those opportunities. So I think this is a mistake. I think it was a real opportunity for dialogue that was missed. And yeah, the fact that there aren't that many women in leadership positions of the UN is probably precisely why this happened, because you get an angry mob getting these male leaders going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And men don't have the same authority a woman does in a conversation like this to go, no, you know what? This is crap. Come on, grow up. That's why I can say something like this, and I've had a few guys email me this week and say, I agree with you, but when I say this, I get accused of all these things, and yeah, people get punished for the identity of the speaker. And it's just too bad, because yes, she's white, and yes, she's blue-eyed, and some people think that's a bad thing, and that's really sad. And yes, she's large busted, according to some, again, not by my family standards. And I see these things, and it's like, okay, now I know what people like this think when they see me. And they know nothing about my background. They know nothing about my own socioeconomic challenges. And they know nothing about what I think or what I feel or what matters to me, because they don't care. Because in these people's minds, they see a white, large-breasted woman and they objectify her. That is all she is to them. It is reduction to body. This petition has objectified Wonder Woman. All they see her as is a white, large-breasted woman. And that's all. That's objectification. That's not the character doing that to herself. That is these particular viewers and their interpretation doing that. And that's wrong.